You open your recent blood test, total cholesterol, high, triglycerides, high. Your doctor mentions metabolic syndrome and prescribes pills. Your heart tightens, not from disease, but from fear. In this moment, you are told that a single number decides your future. But what if the story behind that number is incomplete? Tonight, let us gently dismantle the fear around cholesterol and uncover what your body is truly trying to say. Metabolic syndrome is not one disease, but a web of signals. Increased waistline, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high triglycerides, and lowered HDL. It behaves like a spider quietly tightening threads around your heart, brain, and liver. Yet many are told only one message: your cholesterol is too high. We will walk through this web together, thread by thread, so you can finally see the whole pattern, not just one sticky strand. For decades, a simple story has ruled medicine. Cholesterol clogs arteries like grease in a pipe, causing heart attacks. The solution seemed obvious: strip fat from the diet, drive cholesterol down with pills, and the heart will be safe. It is a clean, comforting tale like a children's book, but your body is not a drain pipe. It is a living, adapting ecosystem. Malcolm Kendrick asks, what if the central character of this story, cholesterol, has been misunderstood all along? Kendrick invites us to imagine cholesterol not as a villain with a knife, but as a bodyguard rushing to damaged areas of your arteries. Where there is inflammation, stress, or injury, cholesterol appears, patching, rebuilding, responding. Blaming cholesterol for heart disease, he argues, can be like blaming firefighters for the fire. For those with metabolic syndrome, this shift in perspective is powerful. The real issue may be what is damaging your arteries in the first place. If you live with metabolic syndrome, you may feel trapped between fear of heart disease and fear of changing medical advice. This video will not tell you to stop your medications or ignore your doctor. Instead, we will gently uncover how much of the cholesterol story is solid science and how much may be assumption. Stay with me until the end, and you will gain questions to bring to your physician and practical steps that actually match how your body works. Let us pause the blame game. Instead of asking, how do we crush cholesterol? We will ask, what is my body trying to protect me from? Metabolic syndrome often grows slowly, like a shadow. It is linked with insulin resistance, chronic stress, sleep disruption, and hidden inflammation. To heal, we must think like detectives, not like executioners. Kendrick's book hands us a magnifying glass, not a hammer. Cholesterol is not a poison floating in your blood. It is a waxy substance your body makes and uses to build hormones, vitamin D, and cell membranes. Like bricks in a house, cholesterol is essential. Too few bricks, the structure collapses, too many scattered around, and things look messy. But health is not decided by one pile of bricks. It is influenced by how they are used, moved, and repaired across your body's living construction site. We often hear about bad LDL and good HDL cholesterol as if they were moral characters. In reality, they are lipoproteins, tiny delivery trucks carrying fats and cholesterol through your bloodstream. LDL delivers cargo to tissues. HDL brings some of it back to the liver. The problem is not that trucks exist, but what kind of roads they drive on. Damaged, inflamed artery walls and metabolic syndrome turn a normal delivery route into a dangerous one. Behind the scenes of metabolic syndrome sits insulin resistance, a state where your cells stop responding well to insulin's signal. Your pancreas shouts louder, releasing more insulin, trying to push glucose inside. High insulin levels change how your body handles fat, blood pressure, and inflammation. It is like turning up the volume on every risk factor at once. Kendrick hints that focusing solely on cholesterol is like ignoring the conductor and staring only at one violinist. Perhaps you know this feeling, waking up and immediately recalling your last lab results. Total cholesterol, 260, LDL, 160. The numbers follow you like a sentence. Kendrick warns that statistics, when misunderstood, can turn into chains. Risk is spoken in percentages that sound terrifying, but may represent small changes. For someone with metabolic syndrome, understanding what these numbers truly mean can transform panic into informed, calm action. Kendrick often highlights how studies say statin X reduces heart attack risk by 30%. It sounds huge. Yet, if absolute risk drops from 3% to 2%, that is one fewer event in 100 people. The relative change is 33%, but your personal chance shifts by only 1%. For someone balancing blood sugar, blood pressure, and waistline, such nuance matters. It helps you decide which actions are truly powerful in your own life. Statins lower LDL cholesterol by blocking an enzyme in the liver. For some high-risk patients, they can modestly reduce heart attack risk. Kendrick, however, asks if the benefits have been overstated and if side effects are under-discussed. For people with metabolic syndrome, already juggling multiple medications, this question is personal. Any change in medication should only be made after thorough discussion with your physician, considering your unique risk and preferences. Many patients share stories of muscle pain, fatigue, or memory fog after starting statins. Some feel nothing at all. Kendrick argues that such side effects may be more common than reported because people often blame age or stress. If you live with metabolic syndrome, you may already feel tired or achy, and additional symptoms can quietly blend in. If you suspect a medication is affecting you, always discuss it openly with your doctor rather than suffering in silence. Here comes one of Kendrick's most unsettling observations. In some studies, very low cholesterol has been associated with higher overall mortality, including from cancer and infections. Correlation is not causation, yet this should make us cautious about forcing cholesterol down at any cost. In metabolic syndrome, where the body is already under metabolic stress, we must ask, is extreme lowering always wise, or should we aim for balanced, resilient health instead? Kendrick discusses an intriguing idea. Cholesterol may be part of your body's defense system against infection. Like sandbags stacked around a castle, cholesterol-rich particles can bind and neutralize toxins from bacteria. Very low cholesterol might weaken these defenses. For someone with metabolic syndrome, often living under chronic stress, supporting the immune system is essential. This does not mean seeking sky-high levels, but respecting cholesterol's ancient protective role. Imagine your arteries not as pipes, but as living garden hoses. When they are irritated by high blood sugar, high blood pressure, or smoking, the inner lining becomes inflamed, like sunburned skin. Kendrick argues that this chronic inflammation, not cholesterol alone, is the spark for plaque buildup. Metabolic syndrome fans this fire. To protect your heart, the true question may be, how can we cool the burn in the vessel walls rather than only chase cholesterol levels? Chronically high blood sugar acts like tiny shards of glass flowing through your vessels. It attaches to proteins in a process called glycation, making them stiff and less functional. Kendrick emphasizes that damaged tissue attracts repair crews, including cholesterol. If you live with metabolic syndrome, every sugary drink, every late-night binge is not just calories. It is extra glass scraping your arteries, asking for more emergency repairs. Blood pressure is the force of blood against artery walls. When it is persistently high, it is like a storm beating on the same shoreline day after day. Tiny cracks and micro tears appear in the vessels. Kendrick notes that these injuries provide fertile ground for plaque development. Metabolic syndrome often includes this constant internal storm. Cholesterol then arrives, not as a random invader, but as part of your body's attempt to patch the damage. Not all fat is the same. The soft pinch under your skin is different from the fat packed around your organs, the visceral fat of metabolic syndrome. Kendrick highlights research showing that visceral fat behaves like a secret inflammatory organ, releasing cytokines that irritate vessels and disturb insulin. This is why waist circumference, not just weight, is so crucial. The tape measure around your belly can be more honest than the scale under your feet. Your liver is like an air traffic controller for fats and sugars. In metabolic syndrome, it is bombarded by excess fructose, refined carbs, and triglycerides. Non-alcoholic fatty liver develops, and the liver's ability to manage lipids changes. Triglycerides rise, HDL drops, and LDL particles may become smaller and denser. Kendrick describes this as a traffic controller overwhelmed by too many flights, sending some into dangerous patterns despite good intentions. Not all LDL is equal. Large, buoyant LDL particles are less likely to slip into artery walls. Small, dense LDL behaves like rusted bullets, easily oxidized, more likely to penetrate damaged linings. Metabolic syndrome, with high triglycerides and low HDL, tends to produce these dense particles. Kendrick points out that the usual cholesterol test may not show this detail, leaving some people reassured by a normal LDL that hides a more dangerous pattern. For people with metabolic syndrome, triglycerides and HDL tell a deeper story than total cholesterol alone. High triglycerides with low HDL signal insulin resistance and unhealthy fat handling. Kendrick emphasizes that this pattern is a red flag long before total cholesterol rises. When the triglyceride to HDL ratio improves, risk often falls, even if LDL barely shifts. Focusing solely on LDL can be like watching one gauge on a crowded dashboard. Every morning, your mirror offers clues no blood test can fully capture. Is your waist slowly expanding? Do you see dark circles from poor sleep? A tired posture from chronic stress? Kendrick encourages us to value these live signs as much as lab numbers. Metabolic syndrome is not only hidden in test tubes, it is written in your day's first reflection. Awareness of this body language is the first gentle step toward healing. Consider a man in his early 50s, not overweight, cholesterol normal, no obvious symptoms. Then, suddenly, a heart attack. Kendrick uses cases like this to show that cholesterol alone cannot explain risk. Quiet metabolic syndrome, slight blood pressure elevation, post-meal sugar spikes, visceral fat may have been missed. This crisis shakes our faith in simple explanations and invites a deeper question. What have we been overlooking in our own bodies? Kendrick reminds us that family history shapes how metabolic syndrome and heart disease unfold. Perhaps your father had a stroke at 60, your mother developed type 2 diabetes. Genes do not define you, but they color your starting line. Cholesterol levels may be partially inherited, yet our shared lifestyles, food, stress, sleep, also run in families. Recognizing these patterns is not destiny. It is an invitation to gently rewrite the family story. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline were designed for short bursts of danger. In modern life, they often simmer all day. Kendrick notes that chronic stress raises blood pressure, disturbs blood sugar, and may even influence clotting. For someone with metabolic syndrome, this is like pouring gasoline on a smoldering fire. Cholesterol then enters a body already primed for trouble. Learning to calm your nervous system becomes more than a comfort, it becomes cardiovascular care. While you sleep, your body repairs vessel walls, recalibrates hormones, and clears metabolic waste. Kendrick points to studies linking poor sleep with increased heart disease, independent of cholesterol. In metabolic syndrome, sleep apnea and restless nights are common, closing the repair shop just when it is most needed. If you wake unrefreshed, snore loudly, or fall asleep easily during the day, discussing your sleep with a physician can be as crucial as checking your lipids. Cigarette smoke delivers thousands of chemicals directly to your bloodstream, many of them damaging the delicate lining of your arteries. Kendrick emphasizes that smoking is one of the strongest, most consistent risk factors for heart disease, far beyond cholesterol. In metabolic syndrome, where vessels are already stressed, each cigarette is like lighting another match in a dry forest. Quitting is difficult, but it is also one of the most powerful gifts you can offer your arteries. Kendrick stresses that many heart attacks are not simply about slow plaque buildup, but about sudden blood clots forming on top of a vulnerable plaque. Think of a quiet hill suddenly turning into a landslide. Factors like inflammation, stress, infection, and clotting tendencies converge in one critical moment. Cholesterol may participate in building the hill, but the final trigger is the clot. For those with metabolic syndrome, reducing clot risk is as vital as managing lipids. For years, official guidelines warned us to avoid saturated fat to lower cholesterol. Butter, eggs, and cheese were turned into villains. Kendrick reviews the history of these recommendations and argues that the evidence was weaker than we were led to believe. At the same time, low-fat products often added sugar and refined starches, feeding metabolic syndrome. Many people have been dutifully following advice that may not match the true science of risk. Kendrick and many modern researchers highlight sugar and refined carbohydrates, white bread, pastries, sweet drinks as central drivers of metabolic syndrome. These foods flood the bloodstream with glucose, spike insulin, and encourage fat storage around organs. Over time, they create the insulin-resistant state that tangles cholesterol, blood pressure, and inflammation together. Reducing these fast carbs becomes a more meaningful lever than obsessively trimming natural fats. When Kendrick questions low-fat, high-sugar modern diets, he often points back to simpler patterns: minimally processed foods, stable meals, less constant snacking. Our ancestors ate in rhythms aligned with hunger, not with advertising. Whole vegetables, quality proteins, natural fats, and intact grains did not arrive in shiny boxes. For metabolic syndrome, returning toward such foods is less about a strict diet and more about speaking a language your metabolism still remembers. Many people with metabolic syndrome have improved blood sugar, triglycerides, and HDL by reducing carbohydrates significantly, sometimes following low-carb or ketogenic patterns. Kendrick notes such findings with interest, while also recognizing that responses vary. For some, these approaches can be liberating. For others, they may feel too restrictive. Any major dietary change, especially if you take medications like insulin or blood pressure drugs, should be supervised by your physician. Kendrick challenges the demonization of saturated fat and highlights that populations eating natural fats, including butter, full-fat dairy, and fatty fish, have not always shown increased heart disease. Meanwhile, refined oils and trans fats clearly harm vessels. For metabolic syndrome, replacing industrial snacks and deep-fried foods with natural fats from nuts, seeds, olive oil, and quality animal sources can improve satiety and reduce cravings for sugar. Adequate protein helps stabilize appetite, preserve muscle, and support metabolic health. Kendrick's perspective aligns with research showing that higher protein meals can reduce post-meal glucose spikes and late-night snacking. For those with metabolic syndrome, evenly distributing protein across meals can prevent the roller coaster pattern of hunger and sugar swings. Think of protein as the structural beams that keep your daily energy and cravings from collapsing. Dietary fiber from vegetables, legumes, and whole foods slows digestion, blunts glucose spikes, and feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Kendrick notes that populations with high fiber intake often show lower heart disease, independent of cholesterol levels. For metabolic syndrome, fiber acts like a gentle filter, calming the flow of sugars and fats into the bloodstream. It is less glamorous than superfoods, yet quietly powerful, meal after meal. Constant grazing, snacks between meals, late-night munching, keeps insulin elevated and gives the liver no rest. Kendrick highlights that frequent eating patterns can sustain metabolic syndrome even when portions seem small. Transitioning to structured meals, with true pauses in between, allows insulin to fall and fat to be mobilized. For many, this simple shift in rhythm, without rigid counting, begins to untangle the metabolic knot. Some people with metabolic syndrome find that carefully planned intermittent fasting, extending the overnight fast, or skipping occasional meals improves insulin sensitivity and lowers triglycerides. Kendrick observes that such patterns echo ancestral rhythms of feast and fast. However, fasting is not safe for everyone, especially with medications or certain conditions. Always consult your physician before trying fasting, and approach it as a tool for gentle repair, not a harsh punishment. Kendrick emphasizes that regular physical activity improves insulin sensitivity, lowers blood pressure, lifts mood, and alters lipid patterns, often more powerfully than small changes in diet alone. For metabolic syndrome, movement is not about punishing workouts, but about reminding your muscles what they were built to do. Walking after meals, gentle strength training, cycling with friends, all of these tell your metabolism, you are needed, you are alive. Muscle tissue acts like a sponge for glucose. The more lean muscle you carry, the more easily your body can manage blood sugar. Kendrick notes that sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, worsens metabolic risk. Simple strength training with body weight, bands, or light weights builds new engines that burn fuel more efficiently. For someone with metabolic syndrome, 2 to 3 brief sessions per week can quietly transform how the entire metabolic orchestra plays. A 10 to 20-minute walk after eating can significantly reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. Kendrick highlights that such simple habits often outperform certain medications in real-life impact. For metabolic syndrome, this is a precious ritual. Instead of collapsing on the sofa after dinner, step outside, feel the air, and let your muscles escort glucose out of your bloodstream. Small, repeatable actions weave a stronger safety net than rare heroic efforts. Deep breathing, meditation, gentle yoga, prayer, or time in nature all act as antidotes to the constant adrenaline drip of modern life. Kendrick underlines that mental state and cardiovascular state are inseparable. For metabolic syndrome, learning to downshift the nervous system can lower blood pressure, reduce inflammation, and even improve sleep. This is not soft medicine. It is core work, rewriting the chemical weather your arteries live in every day. Kendrick discusses how social isolation and chronic loneliness raise heart disease risk as powerfully as traditional factors. Humans are wired for connection, our nervous systems calm in safe relationships. For people with metabolic syndrome, sharing the journey with family, friends, support groups can improve adherence to changes and lighten emotional load. The heart is not only a pump, it is also a symbol of your relational life. Hearing that you have metabolic syndrome can feel like being handed a script you never chose. Kendrick's criticism of the cholesterol myth is ultimately about giving that script back to you. Rather than being a passive recipient of pills, you become a co-author of your care. Fear shrinks when you understand the mechanisms in your body and your power to influence them, even through small daily gestures. Kendrick encourages patients to have respectful, informed conversations with their physicians. Before your next appointment, prepare questions. What is my absolute risk? How does my metabolic syndrome affect this? What are the benefits and risks of my current medications? Are there lifestyle changes that could reduce my need for certain drugs? When you arrive with curiosity instead of silent fear, the clinical encounter transforms into a partnership. While we question cholesterol myths, we must not ignore urgent symptoms. Chest pain, sudden shortness of breath, pain radiating to the arm or jaw, sudden weakness or trouble speaking, these demand immediate medical evaluation. Kendrick's critique is not an invitation to deny danger, but to better understand it. If you experience such signs, call emergency services. Better a false alarm than a missed chance to protect your heart or brain. For metabolic syndrome, tracking fasting glucose, HbA1c, waist circumference, blood pressure, triglycerides, and HDL often tells you more about your future than total cholesterol alone. Kendrick suggests focusing on metrics that reflect real metabolic healing. Keep a simple health journal. Record morning blood pressure, weekly waist measurements, and how you actually feel. Progress may first appear in your energy and sleep before it reaches your lab report. Inspired by Kendrick's skepticism of one-size-fits-all rules, you can run gentle experiments in your own life. For 2 weeks, reduce evening sugar and observe sleep and morning glucose. For another, add a 15-minute walk after lunch and watch blood pressure. Record what changes. Share these observations with your physician. Instead of being a passive subject in large trials, you become a careful observer of the one body that matters most, your own. Kendrick wrote, "The Great Cholesterol Con, not to create chaos, but to free us from narrow thinking." For those with metabolic syndrome, his message is this: heart disease and stroke are not fate sealed by a single cholesterol number. They are influenced by a web of factors you can gradually untangle. Questioning old dogma does not mean rejecting medicine. It means partnering with it more wisely, anchored in your lived reality. Let us finish with a simple, realistic, 7-day experiment. Choose one sugary food to reduce, add one 10-minute walk after your largest meal, aim for 10 to 20 extra minutes of sleep, and write down one question for your doctor. These are small, respectful steps, not a revolution. Over time, such steps can change the terrain where cholesterol travels. As always, any medical concerns or treatment changes should be discussed with your physician. Your body is not a mistake. It is a long story still being written. Cholesterol is only one character in that story, not the whole plot. If this video has helped you see metabolic syndrome and cholesterol in a new light, I kindly invite you to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs hope. In the comments, write one small step you will take this week. Together, let us keep learning, questioning, and healing, always in partnership with our physicians.